are in big trouble!
When I was 7 years old, this movie was my crack addiction. Also, I apologize in advance for the random gameplay footage sprinkled throughout the video. I'm trying really hard not to get my first video on this channel getting 9/11 by Disney of all people. The Air Bud franchise is a series of movies beginning back in 1997 with the theatrical release of the first one. The story follows a 12-year-old boy named Josh who meets and adopts a golden retriever runaway, later named Buddy, who has a unique ability to play basketball or any sport at a high level. I never grew up with the original Air Bud series as I was too young to remember who this dog was, but despite the mixed reception upon the first film's release, it popped off hard enough financially that more of them were made. In 2006, it spawned a spin-off series of movies called Air Buddies, which follows the misadventures of Buddy and his wife Molly's 5 golden retriever puppies. The plot for the Air Buddies movies can be easily described as the writers throwing random ass ideas on a wall, and whatever sticks, they would make storylines around it. So one movie can be about the buddies accidentally going to space after sneaking onto a shuttle planned to launch as a test drive, to another where they travel to Egypt on some Indiana Jones nonsense. I, along with many people around my age who grew up with direct-to-DVD Disney films in the mid-2000s, ate this shit up. To the point where in 2007, on the same day my family bought our first dog, and a few hours prior, we went to a pet store where upon entering we were greeted to a large play area where there were 5 golden retriever puppies for sale, 4 boys and 1 girl just like the buddies, and I begged my parents to buy them all. When they obviously said no, I remember... I remember crying in tears so loudly that they dragged me out of the store and back into our car because I was causing a scene and everyone was staring at us. It sounds cringeworthy in retrospect, but that's how much I love these characters and I wanted to make a video talking about them. Despite not thinking about these guys for more than a decade, the first 3 films will always hold a special place in my heart as they, along with other hobbies of my childhood, always reminded me to have fun and live life to the fullest. However, by the time the 4th and 5th movie released, my interest in the franchise began to slowly fade away, and by 2012 with the 6th movie, Treasure Buddies, I remember hating that one so much that I never finished the whole thing. I didn't even bother with the last installment, Super Buddies. Though judging from the clips and trailers I've seen, I wasn't missing out anyways, it looked boring. So for this video, I'll only be talking about 2006's Air Buddies, 2008's Snow Buddies, and lastly 2009's Space Buddies. Mainly to talk about each film's plot along with other aspects I want to mention in between to see if the movies I grew up with still hold up 20 years after these 5 golden retrievers made their debut.
Family, 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 family.
So this spin-off series is part of the original Air Bud timeline that does require context from the previous installments. All you need to know to fill the gaps is that the main human character we're introduced to isn't Josh, but a boy named Noah who first debuted in the 4th Air Bud movie, 7th Inning Fetch. He is Josh's younger half-brother back when he was a minor character at 6 months old, and this movie takes place a few years later where Noah is now 12 years old and Josh, along with their sister Andrea, left for college a while back. Air Buddies the film is about 5 mischievous golden retriever puppies who, after tying up their babysitter and eating her blueberry pie while Noah, Buddy, and their parents were out of the house for a basketball game, get set up for adoption. Because the pups are blood related to their father, every kid on the block wants to adopt the puppy of the famous Air Bud since each of them can play a specific sport at a high level. Speaking of the Air Buddies, here's all 5 of them from oldest to youngest. First, there's Butterball. Think of any stereotypical fat kid and this dog fits that type. His character trait is being gluttonous over food and has an unfunny shtick where pulling on his paw makes him fart. I swear to God, the writers for these movies really love to use this as the driving plot point. Next there's B-Dog, my personal favorite of the group, who I can easily describe as a white boy being adopted and raised in a black household in Atlanta, Georgia. He makes the most cheesy puns and quips of the group, likes rap music, wears a Cuban link chain with a letter B attached to it, and probably thinks the Nutshack theme song is the best music ever crafted by man. After that there's Buddha, the Buddhist of the group, that loves meditating and finding inner peace. He's often the voice of reason and the most normal one of the group, though I never found him interesting. Then there's Mudbud, and his name literally says it all. He prefers to be dirty and smell like 97% of Smash Bros players. No regard for basic hygiene whatsoever and loves mud baths like a pig. Probably doesn't care if he gets covered in ticks and fleas from head to toe. Finally there's Rosebud, the lone girl and youngest of the buddies. Her only character trait is girl. No, literally just being a female, that's it. And is also protective of her brothers, oftentimes standing up for them against bigger threats. She's the equivalent to Scrappy-Doo, all bark but can easily break like a glass cannon. As for which families adopt which dog, Butterball is good at football, though he originally was supposed to be adopted by a family that eats a healthy diet. B-Dog is set for a family whose son sucks ass at basketball. Buddha is getting adopted for a 5-year-old kid who can't swing a baseball bat to save his own ass. Mudbud is set up for adoption for a boy whose friends and family loves volleyball, but the kid himself hates sports and prefers to play on his Game Boy Advance black model, let alone playing outside and getting dirty like the dog. And Rosebud is getting sent to a show-off girl who's trying to prove that she can kick ass at playing soccer. Don't get used to the buddies being good at sports because it's never brought up or mentioned again after the first movie. Our antagonist is Selkirk, an animal trainer who tried to get the spoiled kid Bartleby, a tiger that would have eaten him in minutes. You'll see that some of the adult characters have the awareness of a deer on headlights. They're not very smart. Bartleby... fucking sounds like Bunnelby from Pokemon, Jesus Christ. Bartleby instead wants Buddy himself due to the dog's natural talent at various sports, so Selkirk sends his 2 henchmen to go capture the dog. This was only possible because the buddies did not want to get adopted and decided to run away from home as a unit, but Butterball, being the fat ass that he is, gets baited by the villains with a sprinkled donut, and all 5 puppies were used as bait to lure Buddy and Molly, leading to them getting kidnapped. From here, the rest of the movie is about the Air Buddies going on a journey to rescue their parents, while Noah and his friend Henry search for the dogs. The movie ends with all the dogs safe and sound, Selkirk and his whole crew gets arrested by the local sheriff, and the pups learning their lesson about never running away from their fears and facing the unknown. One by one, each of the buddies are adopted by their aforementioned families, with Butterball in particular getting adopted by Bartleby after they learn that the kid just wanted the dog he can call a friend. Out of all the Air Buddies movies, the first one has the most well-grounded and realistic narrative. They're not doing anything drastic with the plot like the later movies would end up doing. It's about learning to accept change and moving on from the family nest, going out on your own to experience new opportunities and meeting new people, much like Josh and Andreas already left for college. The new kids the buddies are getting adopted to aren't good at sports or socializing at first, but by the end of the film they learn to bond, get better at their respective sport, and look more happier than the beginning. And no matter how distant they all are, they'll always know where to meet up for playdates, as their love for each other will always hold strong. Unless one of the human kids move away from Fernfield, then it becomes a problem, but my point still stands. For an introduction to the spin-off series, Air Buddies does a good job at establishing important characters, themes, and vibes it's trying to aim for. There's some aspects of these films I'm shocked I didn't have an issue with as a kid, but it's more noticeable with an adult mindset. The soundtrack being very limited, with 2 specific songs being used throughout most of the runtime that it ends up being repetitive. They're not bad music, in fact it sounds generic at best, but I just wish they made more tracks to add variety. This movie apparently is the first one to allow the animal characters to speak, which may have come off as jarring hearing Buddy talk for the first time, plus it contradicts the previous movies before where the animals didn't talk. Surprisingly, the mouth animation held up after all this time. It looks fine and well animated for 2006 standards. There's some scenes where the buddies are holding onto something with their mouths, yet they're still talking while doing so. It makes no sense how they're doing that, as there's no indication of them thinking about their dialogue in their minds. The use of the sound effects for the pups are way too much and off-putting. I get that it's a kids film, but when the adult animals are barking, whimpering, or making grunt sounds, you can tell it's coming from the animal actors themselves. Yet when the buddies do it, they sound like mature golden retrievers, and the sound effects are clearly added in through post-production. There's a few minor nitpicks I can go on and on about, but they're pointless in the grand scheme of things, and overall, Air Buddies for the most part still holds up as a good movie. If you're fine with a story that doesn't take itself too seriously, it'll be a fine pick for you to watch, especially with kids.
Mama, you'll never believe what happened.
From here on out, the plot of the next 2 films in this video will not only take the buddies outside of their comfort place like Fernfield, but there's gonna be side characters accompanying them. While in this case it's a different breed of dogs and a ferret, in other movies they've also had different animal companions and a ghost at one point. Snow Buddies takes place sometime after the first movie, where each of the pups see their new human owners get ready to leave for school, including Buddy and Molly, who see Noah and Henry leave the house as well. Once done, the buddies all plan to meet up at their meetup spot for their usual play date, opting to play hide and seek, until Butterball, being the fat ass that he is again, spots an open truck near the street with a cargo of ice cream heading for Alaska. His gluttony side takes over and heads into the truck, with the rest of the siblings following not far behind, leading to them getting locked inside unbeknownst to the delivering men and heading straight for the north. We then come to a house in Alaska where we are introduced to a husky dog named Shasta and his owner Adam, who's determined to win the Alaskan sled dog race because of what happened to his father due to a tragic accident a year prior. Meanwhile, the cargo containing the buddies is thrown out the back of the plane mid-flight, falling down like a 4-night cargo supply, but thanks to plot armor they survive getting tossed around in the most goofy ass way. Later that night, Adam wishes upon a star for 5 more dogs to form a sledding team to compete in the race, and when he leaves for school the next morning, Shasta wanders off from home to find the buddies lost and having no clue how to get back. So the puppies decide to help Shasta, and by extension Adam, pursue their wish of competing in the race, as well as getting to the airport back to Fernfield, located at the finish line. There's also the villain named John George III, a cheating prick and arrogant French musher who is hated by nearly everyone in town, on top of being last year's champion. This movie makes it very clear that you're supposed to hate his guts. The first thing John does is talk shit about Adam's father retiring from dog sledding competition due to the accident. I amend the dad's discipline for not climbing over the counter to beat him up. John also cheats his way through every race by sabotaging other racers, often going as far as pushing them off their sleds, and even disregards his own dog's safety when the 2 leads in the pack fall into a pool of cold water due to them being heavy for the thin ice. It's amazing that the writers wrote a villain so unlikable it makes Selkirk look like a parody of an antagonist. The movie in regards to everything else is mostly the same as the first one, but what I want to focus on is that Snow Buddy's plot is more ambitious with higher stakes. The whole dog sledding concept allows the buddies and Shasta to learn that even when things get scary, with enough practice and determination, you can overcome impossible odds even when everyone around you assumes you're not capable of handling the consequences that comes with achieving greatness, and that an act of kindness can come a long way in making others appreciate your actions. Throughout certain sections of the movie, Adam's dad tells him that he shouldn't compete in the race to avoid getting into an accident just like him, or how the aforementioned lead dogs of John George's team, Francois and Philippe, keep insisting to buddies to not compete since a group of puppies don't belong in a dog sledding competition, especially when they brought up how Shasta's parents died in the same accident that Adam's father was in. Kind of a low blow, not sure why they thought it was a good idea to bring that up. Despite everyone's doubts, not only did the buddies save Francois and Philippe from drowning, but they still committed to the sport, even winning the whole race. So in that regard, I love that the plot has a stronger narrative with a great lesson to teach the audience. It ain't the most original thing to do, but it gets the job done. Now before we move on, I do have to address the elephant in the room regarding the behind the scenes production of Snow Buddies. I have a feeling that if I don't, people will ask about it in the comments. A few years ago, I watched a video from the gamer from Mars talking about this particular subject. In it, he mentions how in early 2007, Keystone Productions purchased 30 golden retriever puppies, 5 of which were born from a Canadian breeder, to be used for the filming process. When a representative for the American Humane Association, you know, the folks that put in those no animals will harm in the making of this film disclaimer movies, arrived on set on the first day of filming, only 15 puppies were on set. The other 15 had been showing signs of illness for about 2 weeks, eventually being diagnosed with parasitic diseases common among young dogs. But wait, it gets worse. The lower mainland of Vancouver where Snow Buddies was filming had been experiencing an outbreak of parvovirus, another highly contagious virus that often preys on puppies. With so many already exposed, the 30 puppies were removed from the set. 3 of them were euthanized due to the intestinal complications from all of this shit, with the death total rising to 5 when the other 2 puppies later died. This made rewatching Snow Buddies really difficult because of the obvious story I'm now aware of. I'm actually shocked that this movie saw the light of day despite what happened, and more importantly, nobody got arrested for it. It's hard for me to recommend it to people when the information is out there, so all I'll say is that the film itself is good, with a better plot, great practical effects like with Butterball rolling down a snowy hill, and overall, a great lesson to teach. If you're gonna watch Snow Buddies, just be aware of the negligence and irresponsibility the crew made to make this film happen.
Peter, what are you doing? Crack? What the fuck?
Alright, we made it to the final movie for this video. As a kid, I remember liking this one over the other 2, and after rewatching it, I actually prefer Snow Buddies a little more over this one. Space Buddies starts with Buddha and his owner Ben stargazing one night, and the boys see a shooting star, so they start wishing. Ben's wish is to touch the moon one day, and Buddha wishes for his owner's wish to come true. He also hears from the mom that Ben is going on a school field trip to Vision Enterprises to watch the launch of the Vision 1 spacecraft. Pets are obviously not allowed, so Buddha is left behind. That doesn't stop him from gathering up the other siblings to sneak onto the back of the school bus headed for their destination. Side note, I'm already finding it odd how the pile of bags are just left there instead of being organized or held onto by the students. And not only are the bags conveniently shaped like a hill for the buddies to climb on, but the camera immediately cuts to the bus driving off, a bunch of people are inside, and somehow the dogs didn't get caught for the entire bus ride to the Space Center. I'm sorry, but it doesn't make sense, but whatever, plot armor, I guess. We are then introduced to Pi, who is played by Patrick Starr's BA, along with his furry companion Gravity. They're in charge of the launch of the spacecraft. We're also introduced to this movie's antagonist, Dr. Finkel, who secretly sabotages the ship's fuel tank ahead of time to get Pi into serious trouble. When the bus arrives at Vision Enterprises and the kids get a tour around the facility, the buddies sneak in to get a hold of some astronaut suits made specifically for dogs, and sneak onto the shuttle to get a close-up view. Just like last time, they stay in there for too long and get locked inside unbeknownst to the crew members back at the control station, and are sent into space within the shuttle. The crew members later become aware of the tank being nearly empty and have only 1 hour to find a solution, or else they'll have to abort the mission. Their solution is to fuel it back at a Russian space station once thought to be destroyed with all members inside dying a long time ago. Not only is it where we meet the lone human survivor Yuri, a literal schizo who likes to make an ass of himself, but we also meet our other animal companion Sputnik, who just wants to go back home to his owner Sasha. Once the buddies meet Sputnik and get a brief tour around the station, Yuri finds them and decides to keep them as hostages, only for Sputnik to tire him out by making him dance too much and using the opportunity to bail the buddies out and escape back to the ship. Some unfunny hijinks ensue between Butterball and Yuri, and the space station explodes from a gas leak, with Yuri escaping within a small space pod. Unfortunately for the dogs, the ship is heading towards the moon instead of home, so they use this chance to walk on the moon. I do want to mention that the montage of them walking on the moon is really cute. Because Space Buddies takes place in space, the film uses a lot of CGI and set designs to give off the illusion. From the space shuttle to the moon, even towards the climax of the movie. We'll get into that in a bit, but this premise allows this stuff to occur, and for 2009 standards, most of these things still look fine. The only nitpick I have with the CGI is that it does look slightly outdated. I imagine they weren't given enough budget to make it look a little more polished, but it isn't a deal breaker. However, with a slight lack of polish on the CGI, you can easily tell certain camera angles showcasing which shot was full 3D or CGI, and which ones were the puppies on set with prop designs and a green screen. screen. It's not even a massive downgrade, I just wanted to point that out because I'm a perfectionist at fault. Anyways, the crew members back on Earth slowly notice the buddies walking on the moon with spacesuits and are panicking on how to bring them home, while also agreeing to keep this information confidential to avoid bad publicity to Vision Enterprises. Gravity, the little ferret that's been with Pi the whole time, finally speaks for the first time and instructs the dogs to get back to the ship so that they can make the trip back home. Two things to note. One, Buddha uses the ship's robotic arm to bring a small chunk of the moon back home as a souvenir for Ben. And two, the news about the buddies in space gets out to the public, so now every news station is reporting on it, which is how Ben, the owners for the other buddies, and even Sputnik's owner Sasha find out about their pets' whereabouts. The kids of each of the buddies arrive at Vision Enterprises, not sure how they got there without their parents driving them, and are brought inside to look around. Meanwhile, Dr. Finkel, being the piece of shit that he is, secretly overrides the ship's flight path into an oncoming meteor shower in an attempt to kill the dogs. At least with the previous villains, their goal was to either satisfy a spoiled brat like with Selkirk, or win a dog sledding competition like John George, even if it means cheating your way to victory. But Dr. Finkel just wants to kill innocent puppies and frame a co-worker into taking the blame for it. You have to be a generational hater to pull this shit off, because I would never. Ben did notice Dr. Finkel messing with the main terminal, so keep that in mind, it becomes important later. A brief action scene commences with some decent CGI animation to boot, but one meteor hits the shuttle's antenna, leaving no other choice but for Butterball to go outside and fix it. Once that's done, the crew back on Earth begin to wonder how the shuttle's trajectory changed to collide with the meteor shower earlier, until Ben puts 2 and 2 together and calls out Dr. Finkel for fucking up the operation, leading to him getting escorted out. Yeah, thank God he got locked up for that stunt. Everything seems to go according to plan until Yuri, still inside the small pod from the Russian space station, is on a trajectory that's gonna kill him if nothing is done. So Sputnik briefly takes control over the Vision 1 spacecraft to alter Yuri's flight path so that he can land on Earth safely. The movie ends with the dog safely returning to Earth. Buddha gives Ben the chunk of rock he brought back from the moon, fulfilling his wish from the start of the film. Yuri crash lands in Russia, and Sputnik returns to Sasha while achieving his wish of becoming the first dog to walk on the moon. Now, I wouldn't say that Space Buddies has a better story than the first two films. In fact, the plot is just the buddies accidentally getting sent into space after getting locked in the ship. And the lesson this film is trying to teach ain't even a lesson to begin with, or at least it ain't one I could pick up on when rewatching it. When it lacks in a somewhat weak story, it makes up for it in some of the action scenes and decent CGI. Yeah, I criticized the CGI looking like Xbox 360 graphics at certain points, but a lot of the scenes do look decent. Be thankful we're not getting Muckbuster level animation for the space scenes. I also think Dr. Finkel is a much worse villain with how much he tries to sabotage the mission, all while talking shit towards Pi, Gravity, and even the buddies. It looks like the writers are trying to make him just as unlikable as John, but I still think the villain from the second movie is more of a jerk than this guy. Despite some of my issues, Space Buddies is a good watch. There's many aspects about it that can still be appreciated, and if you want a good time with puppies in space, definitely give your kids or yourself a favor and give this movie a watch. In conclusion, do the first 3 Air Buddies movies still hold up after 20 years? To not put any bias on the table for a moment, I'd say yes and no. Yes, because even though these movies came out during a time period where live-action talking animals were popular and were oversaturating the direct-to-DVD market, Air Buddies is one of the better film series in terms of visuals and storytelling. It's not trying to overstimulate or jiggle keys to a kid's face and tries to give anyone a good time watching them. And no, because all 3 plots are either good or decent. Again, I wasn't very fond of Space Buddy's story. Some of the CGI or animation aged like milk. However, the mouth animation is one of the best aspects of it. Soundtrack overall is mid and could use some more songs to add variety. Some jokes like with Butterball farting whenever his paw is pulled didn't age really well, and I found it gross even as a kid. Still, I was happy to not only revisit my childhood characters, but to see that these movies are just as decent as I remember, even if my opinions have changed over time. If you want to watch Air Buddies, the first movies is available on YouTube by the official Air Bud channel, while Snow and Space Buddies, along with other installments, can be viewed on Disney+. I guess to end the video, these movies were more than just childhood nostalgia. Remember that story I talked about at the beginning? Even though I was upset at not getting those golden retriever dogs, in hindsight it was for the best, as later that same day at a different pet store, my parents would get me and my siblings our first house dog, Shiley. She was everything to us. She was smart, hyperactive yet shy towards new people, a bit of a jackass and food aggressive at first, but mellowed out over time. I loved her, along with 2 other dogs we would get later on. A major part of why I wanted to make this video was because on the 12th of January 2025, Shiley passed away after dealing with seizures since 2023. And I brought her up because the Air Buddies played a huge role in me asking my parents for us to get a family pet. So even if my opinions aren't the same as before, had it not been for Butterball, B-Dog, Buddha, Mudbud, and Rosebud, I probably would have never met Shiley, Sparky, or even Shadow. These golden retrievers gave me a bunch of memories I'll forever cherish, and meeting my pet dogs is the greatest gift a 7-year-old me could ever ask for. So thank you, Air Buddies, and happy 20th anniversary.